Dear student, good morning to all of you. In the continuation of my previous audio lecture on effective business communication, I am coming to next point, clarity of purpose and objectives of communication. The managers cannot play or plan, organize and control if he does not communicate effectively to get the information about the fact and circumstances relevant to his daily responsibilities. If he has to take correct decision, the information received by him must be complete, correct and concise. The administrator must be very clear about the exact purpose behind his communicational needs. In an organization, he has to use media for the objectives like issuing orders and warning, raising the morale, giving advice and suggestions, and for some other purposes of persuasion, education and instruction, etc. He can motivate his workers effectively if he tries to satisfy their basic human needs and healthy social relationships. Warning is very effective means of communication, but it ought to be used directly and sparingly. It should not be given to a person in the presence of others. The morale of the labor can be raised if the superior appreciates their work, encourages them, and gives them a sense of belonging with the organization. The order can be very effective, authoritative communication if it is clear, complete, and given in a friendly manner in an organization. And advice is effective if it is related to a particular work of the worker. It should not create in him the feelings of inferiority. Suggestions can be used as a mild and subtle form of communication. Workers are to be encouraged to drop their suggestions in suggestion box. Persuasion is always better than representation and compulsion in order to change views, beliefs, attitude, habits, and actions of the people. Next topic, appropriate tone, pitch, quality, force, and intensity of voice. We know that words have misleading, but a different tone of voice assigns a different shade and colors of the meaning which comes from the emotional involvement of the speaker. The tone of voice gives an idea of the depth of intensity of the emotions. The facial expression, gestures, and postures are complementary to the tone of voice in conveying exact meaning to the communication receiver. The sound symbols carry the idea, but the tone, pitch, and force of voice communicate emotions of love, affection, hate, jealousy, fear, anger, etc. The pleasant and acceptable quality of our voice depends upon our emotional control. Pitch variations in our speech help us in emphasizing certain points, whereas vocal monotony is useful in short formal speech. There are some people who tend to speak rapidly. They find it difficult to change the pace of their speech. This monotony of pace is tiresome to the listener. The variation in vocal pitch and rate help the communicator to hold the attention and interest of the listener. The receiver not only receives the words of communicator, but he also realizes the mood of the conveyor between the lines. While listening to a public speaker, we first listen to the tone of his voice and then to the meaning of his message. Therefore, the communicator must strive to sound natural, friendly, sincere, and pleasant. Next is positive and pleasant approach. Dear student, in this I will tell you, if your approach is positive and pleasant, no doubt your communication makes everything effective. See, any business can win good reputation and can have friendly relation within and outside the organization with a positive and pleasant way of oral and written communication. There are always many occasions where when a businessman is likely to lose his temper. Sometimes he disagrees with the people in his organization and also with the outsiders who are in one way or the other connected with his organization. Sometimes he finds imperfections and mistakes in the business transition. Sometimes he has to suffer inconveniences and even financial loss. Naturally, he has to complain against some people. In these circumstances, the businessman stands on trial. It is very easy for him to become plainly negative in his approach towards these people, but his anger and impatience might bring adverse results because nobody likes the negative approach and harsh word. A positive approach, on the other hand, convinces the reader of your helplessness or your genuine difficulties. You can retain the goodwill even after your refusal by the only way of your positive and pleasant approach. You should never spoil the atmosphere of goodwill by using bitter words and complaining undertone. A businessman should look at every situation with optimism and should try to make the best of it. He may not find everything agreeable. He may come across several problems, but he should always believe in the fact that every situation can have the advantage of its own. He has to find out those advantages. Educate knowledge of the subject and the receiver. Dear student, in this I will tell you how is this important and how educate knowledge plays its role. Before writing a letter or delivering a speech, the communicator should thoroughly know the subject on which he is going to express his thoughts, ideas, and feelings. A salesman, for example, who works in a TV shop must have some knowledge of the television. He will be able to raise the interest in the mind of the customer and focus their attention on the various points of the merits in every TV set kept for sales in the shop. He must know how to operate the set and how to make different appeals in order to generate interest in different types of customers. In generating interest and creating desire in the mind of a customer, the salesman has to dwell at length upon the various advantages and merits of the article he has to sell. The salesman should know not only the advantage of the product, he should be able to compare it with other similar products available in the market. He should also know the facts and figures pertaining to the product. This statistical information can make an effective appeal to the educated. He should be able to judge the economic status and ability of the customer. In case of rich customer, he should make appeal to their pride of possession. And in case of the lower and middle class customer, the instinct to economize appeal is more effective. All this knowledge is essential to the salesman if he has to communicate effectively with the customer. So, an administrator in a business firm requires the knowledge of business making and selling the article. He also requires the knowledge of way to communicate, what to communicate and how to communicate with different agencies, bank, insurance companies, government officials in order to be effective in his communication with them. So the receiver of the communication has a very important place in communication circle. When the receiver is absent, the communication situation itself cannot exist. Therefore, the message must be prepared by keeping in view the type of person who is the receiver of it. It is very essential to see that every attempt is made to get maximum information regarding his educational qualification, his status and designation, the nature of his work and responsibilities, his intellectual level and other aspects of his personality. The communication sender has to organize his message in such a way that it becomes pleasing, suitable and acceptable to the receiver. The language of the communicator must be persuasive, adaptable and intelligible to the receiver. The style, manner of and content of the language must be carefully used to create goodwill in mind of the receiver. It must be remembered that we should not use the same language with the literate worker and office clerk and with the manager of the organization. So, dear student, I am telling you in next topic or next audio lecture, I will tell you about the completeness and other. Thank you very much.